Rise and shine. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and tune in to Good Morning Aurora. News, weather, and really cool interviews. Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m.
Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. The time is now 8:21 a.m. and this is the episode that has been rife with technical issues. However, as you can see, your favorite morning show, we handle them very well. Cameras on coffee cups and the like. Our engineers are among the best. U.S. Army, holler at us. You tune into Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast, and we are on location and joined by Dr. Goldman of East Aurora Counseling. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey. Awesome. All right. So, yes, we're coming to you live from the east side of Aurora. I want to say hello and good morning to my co-host, Christine.
Good morning.
Good morning to JV, and good morning to Hunter as well. The squad is in the house. All right. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk to you guys about before we get into our interview. So without further delay, the news.
As always, Aurora Downtown is doing their Call for Art. Sugar Skull City is going on. It's a month-long celebration in downtown Aurora that celebrates and honors the cultural and local tradition of Day of the Dead. To coincide with First Fridays and Day of the Dead activities on November 6th, Sugar Skull City promotion and activities will run from October 15th through November 15th. Artists, community members, youth, and families are invited to honor the Mexican tradition of Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, by creating an unframed 12 by 18 work depicting a sugar skull that can be displayed in business windows in downtown Aurora. You can participate by creating a 2D artwork in the style or media of your choice, and all skill levels are welcome. You can complete the submitted works to Aurora Downtown at info@auroradowntown.org, or you can drop off the work at Aurora Fast Print. They're going to be displayed in downtown storefronts from October 15th through November 15th.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, we have the Run for Hunger 5K. From now until the 30th of the month, a virtual run to alleviate hunger in our community. All proceeds will be donated to Marie Wilkinson's Food Pantry. You can find more information at runforhunger5k.com, and that's brought to you by El Tiro, Society 57, and more. And good morning, Aurora Sports. Cubs are officially in the playoffs now for the 5th time in 6 years. Go Cubs. However, they lost to the Pirates yesterday, 3-2.
Damn.
I know. The White Sox, they already clinched their playoff spot. They're already there. They lost to the Indians 5-3 yesterday. And we talked about Michael Jordan and his new gig. The Bulls are in the news again. They hired former Oklahoma City Thunder head coach Billy Donovan as their new head coach.
Oh, snap. Yeah, go Bulls. Go Bulls. Real quick, will the Bulls ever return to the heyday of wins like they had in the 90s? Will that ever happen again?
No comment.
No. The most controversial topic so far.
And now the weather.
All right. Weather in Aurora. The temperature right now is 58 degrees. The high today will be 78 degrees, and it appears that high will be reached at around 3 o'clock p.m. And yeah, it's kind of cool out there right now. It felt really good this morning, though. Tomorrow, the high will be 78 degrees and sunny. Friday will be 80 degrees and sunny as well. Saturday looks to be partly cloudy, yet a high of 84, and Sunday will be 77 degrees, likewise partly cloudy. So if you got plans for the weekend, stay fresh, get your nails done and your hair and everything, and it looks like it'll be fun. So go on out there and check out what's going on in our fair city. Okay, Downtown Aurora businesses take on Hunger Action Month. Now, we have been drilling to you all month that Hunger Action Month is better known as HAM. Okay, acronym. Hunger Action Month. Y'all get it. Now, there's a lot going on. Carts for a Cause, specifically in conjunction with the Aurora Food Pantry and Marie Wilkinson's Food Pantry, have been doing a great artistic themed endeavor in the city, and you can see some of the carts on display. Now, there's a lot of businesses that are taking part. Society 57, Cottonseed Creative Exchange, Treadwell Coffee, McCarty Mills Tap Room, La Quinta de los Reyes, Gillerson's Grubbery, Gary Brown Art Studio and Gallery, and Altiro Latin Fusion. 10% every Monday in September from 3 to 8 p.m. on orders of Al Poblano Tapa and Ala a la organica cocktail. My Spanish is horrible today. Or a fresh squeeze lemonade. That's Altero Latin Fusion. Now, Society 57 and Cottonseed Creative Exchange have donation boxes by Marie Wilkinson's Food Pantry all during this month. And Gillerson's Grubbery will collect diapers and feminine products for the month of September. La Quinta will be donating 10% from Tuesday through Thursday on any fajita plate during the month of September. Chicken fajitas, steak fajitas, veggie fajitas, and combo fajitas all included. I like with the fajitas, you want the vegetables seared, but you want a little crunch with your green peppers. Or maybe that's just me. Now, Gary Brown Art and Studio, they have a raffle entry coming up on the next first Friday, and the prizes will be artwork by Maureen Gassick, Gary Brown, and Karen Dulce. And McCarty Mills Tap Room, 140 South River Street, Suite 108, will donate 10% of sales of reserved keg from Brother Chimp. Beer of the month is For the Masses IPA. Now, very important here. Coming soon to a First Friday near you, there's going to be something really big happening, and I want all of you out there to remember it. The Aurora Public Art Commission, Roots Aurora, and Viso Arts are putting together what is known as the Aurora Stronger exhibit, a community that came together. This is going to be highlighting and displaying all of the art on the art boards that boarded up downtown after the looting and rioting and things like that. All of that artwork that was collected, or created rather, is being collected and will be displayed, and this is the initiative. So it's going to be the first Friday, October 2nd, from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Gallery 1904 at 1 East Benton in downtown Aurora. That's Benton and Stolp, the old Aurora Public Library. And this looks like it's going to be a very good event. So I'll be out there taking pics and documenting it like we always do. Good Morning Aurora will be on the scene checking it out. Also, don't forget today, Wednesday, On Us, our Neighbors United and Strong and Talented Tents Social Services are having their free barbecue on Wednesdays. That's going to be at 122 West Downer Place. So come on out there, show some love. Burger, dog, chip, you get your eat on for a good cause. And also, if you have any donations of any kind, feminine products, hygiene products, or non-perishable food items, please donate them. You can hit them up on their Instagram, which is Talented Tents SS, or you can also contact the Facebook page, and you can make drop-offs and donations. And with that, that's the news. So now let's get into our interview with our good friend, Dr. Goldman. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hi.
We're here on location too. Yeah. Very cool. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for coming out.
And thank you for the coffee.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a bribe.
Yeah. Duncan. Oh my God, the good stuff. Yeah. All right.
Why don't you tell everybody who you are and where you're from?
Okay. I am Dr. Amanda Goldman, and I am a PhD LCPC psychotherapist, and this is my practice that you're sitting in drinking coffee. Welcome. Where I'm from is always a difficult question. I knew you were going to ask me that, and I was thinking, how do I answer that question? I grew up all over the world. My father was a civil engineer, and so we moved overseas when I was 3, and we came back to the United States when I was a teenager. And so it's very difficult. I always told people that I was from Indiana, and then I moved to Indiana, and they told me I wasn't. But Aurora is my chosen home, East Aurora specifically, and I've been here for 23 years, so it's wonderful.
Wow. Where were you born?
I was born in New York.
Okay.
Yes.
See, so you really
Yes.
traveled all over.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And tell us about your educational background.
Oh, that's also a really difficult one. Very much so. I went to Anglican boarding school in England, and I was homeschooled in many countries where I wasn't allowed to go to the regular schools because I wasn't whatever religion that I was living in. I went to inner city public schools in Houston when we were in the States on and off. I've been to literally every type of school that you can think of. I've done correspondence courses. Even with my college education, I went to Indiana State for undergraduate, and then Benedictine for my master's, and then I went to Capella University in Minneapolis for my doctorate, which was largely online. So even there, I've done sort of online and in person, and so you name it. I've been to whatever school that is. I can really speak to the advantages and disadvantages of public versus private versus parochial versus boarding school versus, homeschool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So
That has to come in handy, though, when you're dealing with your clients, kind of knowing all these different areas and aspects.
I think so, because I hear very strong opinions on sort of different experiences from people who have only experienced one thing. So I've heard people saying, oh, no, public schools are bad, or, private schools are bad, or online schools are bad, or all these things. And really, they all have their advantages and disadvantages. But for my own part, I chose to raise my daughter in District 131, and she did attend East Side schools and really thrived. So
That's great. Growing up, what impact did your dad have on your life?
oh gosh, that makes me want to cry. Actually, that you brought that up. My dad is my hero. So my parents got custody of me when I was about 2.5. And my dad was absolutely my best and most functional parent. And he and I had a lot in common in terms of like our personal trauma histories. My dad was a navigator in World War II. He was actually at Omaha Beach when he was 16 years old. He lied about his age, and because he was very intelligent, he was promoted, but it was very traumatic for him. So we had a lot in common. Like, I think we understood a lot about each other, and he actually passed away in 2001. So he was a huge influence.
What are some of, I guess, what life lessons did he teach you? What kind of have you carried over?
Well, ironically, the life lesson that he always tried to teach me was one that I really didn't accept at the time. He always said, your reputation is everything. Your word is everything. Your reputation. And I, as a teenager, I was like, oh, I don't care about my reputation, but I really do. I don't necessarily care about what people think of me if I don't have respect for those people, but I definitely want to maintain my integrity, especially with regard to my clients and how they feel, or with regard to keeping my word in the community as a provider or as a stakeholder in the community. So I get it now, and I wish I could go back and tell him, oh, I get it.
Right.
That
people always
it's not my reputation in terms of fame or sort of social prestige, but my reputation as a person of my word and as a person that can be trusted.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about the practice, let's talk about the beginnings of East Aurora Counseling. How did it start?
It started really sort of impulsively when I obtained, so to backtrack a little, and this ties in with my nonprofit, my entire life I had absolutely planned on going to work as a psychologist in a state hospital. My first love is schizophrenia. I did all of my field work in state hospitals, Evansville State Hospital, Chicago Reed State Hospital. I did my doctoral research at Elgin Mental Health Center, and that was always my plan. But as I'm sure you're aware, the landscape of state hospitals really, really changed from 1990 when I started college to 2012 when I finished. So by the time I got out of college, my dream job didn't exist anymore. And so I thought, well, I'll just go work somewhere. And I ended up at a group practice in another community, and it was fine. But it was strange to me because I found myself providing a service that was already being provided in a very resourced situation where there were about 200 other providers doing what I was doing in a square mile.
Wow.
And the overhead was exorbitantly expensive. And so I sort of thought, well, this is silly. Like, I could do this more affordably and have a greater impact closer to home. And so I did. I literally started walking around my neighborhood looking for offices for rent and seeing what was available. And I actually found a place. I'm not going to say exactly where I live. Everyone knows where I live. I walked to work usually. And so I was able to get a space in my neighborhood for what I was paying in another community. About the same for a month's rent as for a week in the other community.
Oh, wow.
And I had already figured out how to do the billing and figured out sort of how to run things in a private practice. I thought I can do this myself. I don't really need to work for someone else. And then after I set up shop, I realized no one else was doing it. So that felt even more like, oh yeah, this is definitely the right thing to do.
Right.
And that was 8 years ago.
There's a need for that.
Definitely. Yeah.
So talking to you, I think I understand. so the audience doesn't know our beginning talks.
Yes.
But I see now you've traveled.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Is it?
That's why you know That's why you know. I think the benefit of the human experience and how to, or rather, why you should take care of those perhaps less fortunate. You've traveled. I find when people travel, especially outside the United States, they get a better appreciation for life, their skills, and what they can do for others who don't have those skills.
Absolutely. And I think there's two pieces to that. One is that most of my upbringing was in sort of quote unquote third world countries.
Right.
I lived in Kuwait. I lived in Saudi Arabia. I lived in Indonesia. I lived in Malaysia. I wasn't a tourist. I wasn't sort of going, to visit landmarks and things.
The nice hotel.
Right. I mean, I was that. That was also part of it. But the places that I grew up were, made a very strong impression on me in terms of this is what the world really looks like.
Right.
And when I go visit my grandparents in America, that's a very sort of privileged niche of existence, and it's really not representative of the rest of the world. So that's one piece, and I forgot what the other I forgot what the other piece was. I think the other piece was something about really about privilege. And being very, very aware of my own privilege as an American living abroad, and the fact that we had a gardener and a maid and a cook and a housekeeper and a driver, and and also that people next to me were living in a corrugated metal situation and drinking from the same river that they bathed in, and it's impossible not to be aware of that disparity, and of the way that privilege exploits the resources that rightfully belong to others.
True. So true.
Yes. So you can't unsee that. You can't not be aware of that. Once you lived in it, whether you yourself are suffering or not, you can't unsee it, right?
Yeah. What's the mission of East Aurora Counseling?
For years, people have been encouraging me to create a mission statement, and I haven't done it. I'm very bad at formulating things, and I think that part of it is because I want clients to create their own mission. I don't want to say, here's what we're doing, and maybe they're coming in with a different need or a different agenda for themselves. I don't want there to be a box that they feel like they have to fit into in terms of what they need. So I almost want every single client to say, here's my mission, and I'll be like, yes, that's what we're doing. That's part of it. But really the mission is to be a resource for the community.
Right.
And not only for the community. We don't just serve East Aurora. I have clients who come from Wisconsin. I have telehealth clients from Alaska. I mean, so I don't want to give the impression that this is just sort of a neighborhood bubble, but it is also that. It's an accessible, affordable place for people to get quality mental health care.
Yeah, it sounds like your mission is to help support other people's missions.
Yes, something like that. Exactly. Yeah, I'm sort of at your disposal, within reason.
Right.
Here on the east side, has there been a huge need for your services?
Absolutely. We are constantly beyond capacity. I think I showed you when you first arrived this morning, I showed you the expansion. We're expanding because we're constantly beyond capacity of what we're able to provide. So at any given time we carry, I would say between 80 to 200 active cases. And keep in mind again that I'm by myself, and I'm sort of constantly onboarding other providers who stay for a period of time and then move on, or have a more limited caseload. So whatever help I can get is wonderful, but there's never enough help. I would love to see more providers move into the community. We have a lovely provider upstairs who is kind of getting set up here in the neighborhood, and my hope is that he will soon be able to take Medicaid, and I know that he's trying to do that, but we need more resources. Like, I am one person.
Right.
So yeah,
it's a lot for one person.
It's a huge need. Yeah. Exactly. There's almost 80,000 people in 60505 alone.
Wow. I get the impression that the work that you do is very fulfilling. I get the impression that you like what you do. I think anybody watching this episode will think like, man, that's a person who likes what she does. What do you think the community feels about having the access to the care that you provide?
I would hesitate to say how the community feels, and I would love to hear maybe from the community because I don't want to speak for anyone else. I do know that word of mouth is very important here, and that has been a huge marketing tool, if you will, for the practice, because I don't advertise. I'm not good at it. I don't know how. You're here because we have a Jimmy John's delivery person in common. Like,
yeah.
right. But
Brent,
so,
good look, baby. Shout out.
Right. And I do have a website now. And thankfully my daughter is administrating that because I don't even know what to do with it. So really, people who come here, they're coming because of the reputation in the community. They heard from their cousin, they heard from their coworker, they heard from their neighbor. What have you. I feel like if you broke down the practice and looked at our caseload, there are like 5 families that come here, and they're all sort of connected by degrees of separation. So I feel like we must be doing something right, because, intakes are daily we're getting requests for new services. And it's not from, I don't have a Psychology Today profile, like I don't know. It's coming from the community.
How has COVID impacted
yeah.
your workload with everything going on and all the struggles that people are having?
It's been really, really difficult. I've lost staff. My office manager left. She's a caregiver for some family members, and she didn't feel comfortable to come to work. Funding has slowed down. The mail has slowed down. A lot of people who had private insurance lost their insurance. So financially, it's been a tremendous hit. Thankfully, Invest Aurora gave us like a small loan recently, which has been helpful, and we really appreciate that. So that's one thing, is that the need has increased and the funding has decreased, and the staff have decreased. Although thankfully, I have some new people who have started recently. The other difference is that my businesses have had to combine in a way that they never did before. I've always kept my private practice and my nonprofit separate, mainly because they're separate businesses and it's messy to sort of combine them.
Commingle.
Right, but typically, and we can talk more about the nonprofit, typically I go into homeless shelters to provide my nonprofit services, and with the shelters closing, people had moved into hotels. Those clients have come here. Which is, I'm so thankful, because I really didn't think that would work out logistically. It's very difficult to keep appointments for some clients for a variety of reasons, but they have come here. So now I have a mixture of kind of your traditional outpatient clientele and also, my nonprofit clients who are homeless. And as you see, we've, sort of pivoted to provide clothing resources and food resources, and I got approval from my board for my nonprofit for a transportation stipend to help people get to and from the office, because often they're living in other communities or wherever they can kind of lay their heads, or living outdoors, and so you can't get insurance to send a cab or a Medicab to pick somebody up from like the woods,
Right.
But you can send a regular cab. So
he's at the forest preserve. Just
yes,
take a
exactly,
right.
exactly. Like he'll stand there and you'll see him and it'll be fine. But yes, so we've really had to pivot because of COVID in that regard and combine both of the businesses in a physical sense.
Now, for the listeners, how can folks contact East Aurora Counseling?
So folks can contact, they can email East Aurora Counseling 1, the number 1, at gmail.com. They can call the office, which is 630-486-3800. The Judah Robinson Foundation has a Facebook page. It's Facebook/Dr. Goldman. And gosh, or just walk in. We take walk-ins. We're open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays.
Okay.
So we're not going anywhere.
Very cool.
Tell us more about the nonprofit you'd mentioned.
Yes. So I, again, my first love has always been schizophrenia. It's been an obsession of mine since I was about 11, which is very strange for a child, or I don't know. And back in the day, most people with schizophrenia, you could sort of find them in institutions or residential facilities or what have you, and that's really shifted again with deinstitutionalization. The idea behind deinstitutionalization was that community resources would kind of absorb that population. That never happened. So most people who are sort of actively psychotic are homeless, or many are in nursing homes now too. That's kind of a new trend. And so I thought, well, how can I get mental health services to people who are psychotic, who are hallucinating, who have delusions, who are, kind of struggling with these kind of issues? Well, I have to find a way to access people who are homeless and schizophrenic, or who have other psychoses. And so I started the Judah Robinson Foundation. Judah Robinson was the name of a biological brother of mine who lived for maybe 2 hours. And so I was trying to think of a name that would convey the experience of not having a voice.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
When we talk about schizophrenia and some of the other problems that folks have,
Yes.
how do you feel personally that so many people who have these issues are not able to receive adequate care, and they're out there and in a transit situation and things like that? And I don't mean this in a cruel way, but is that a public risk?
It is a definite risk to the person with the condition.
Okay.
People with schizophrenia or typically with any type of psychosis are less dangerous than the general population. The danger is to them as an individual.
Right.
Because if you're out somewhere and you're disoriented, you're much more at risk for being stigmatized, for being bullied, for being mugged, for being robbed, for lots of different types of abuse. Not to mention that you're subject to the weather, and it's hard to get to your appointments, or it's hard to even get to, like, let's say a soup kitchen or something like that when you're disoriented.
Right.
So the risk, I wouldn't say that there's a particular risk to the public as much as to the individual themselves. And let me state, I actually didn't mean to put more of the emphasis on the public as opposed to the individual. That was a novice. Of course, no, but most people
question,
believe that. I mean, I can't tell you how often people ask me, "Oh, aren't you scared?" Or, "Isn't that dangerous?" or something like. Absolutely not. There are really 2 times that a client with psychosis is dangerous. 2 situations. One is if there's like a substance abuse issue, and the other is if they're paranoid. And you have to keep in mind that only 1% of the population is diagnosable with schizophrenia. So maybe a fourth of that percent is diagnosable with paranoid schizophrenia. It's very rare to find someone who would be sort of combative or hostile like that. So
what is the DSM?
The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
I have like 3 of them at home. I love it.
Do you? Because they keep changing it.
I love that book.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed thing, right? In some ways, it's very, very useful because you can kind of find a description of what people are experiencing, and that can be a comfort to people to go, oh, it's a real thing. It's not just me. Like, this is so common that it's been written about. On the other hand, it's really a weapon, or has been used as a weapon up until 1974, 1978, being homosexual was a diagnosable mental disorder.
Right.
So these things are decided largely by committee, and you have to be very, very careful. Every single member of the committee that defines the schizophrenic and related diagnoses has a fiduciary relationship with large pharmaceutical corporations.
I didn't know that.
Every single member. So be careful. I'm not saying it's not valuable. I think it is.
Yeah.
But be careful. Like, always check your funding sources when you're looking at diagnoses. Who stands to benefit from this diagnosis?
Woke.
Yeah.
Woke. Stay woke.
I just said that out loud.
Stay woke. What's the process of diagnosing a person?
So it depends. There's not any particular instrument for diagnosing schizophrenia. You sort of know it when you see it. If it's, if someone is psychotic and they don't have any kind of organic condition, then you can kind of give that diagnosis if it fits the criteria in the DSM again. For a lot of other conditions, there are many screens and tests and checklists that you can use. So I really rarely diagnose. Obviously, we have to do it for insurance purposes. But unless a client requests a diagnosis, like if they need accommodations for work or for school, or they want to go see a psychiatrist and they really want to present their situation accurately, then it can be useful. Otherwise, it's often just of academic interest to the clinician.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that about that book, and I had, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that a person would maybe have to show 3 or more of the criteria
Yes.
to be but when you're reading the DSM, a novice reading it, sometimes people could fit a whole bunch of and you're trying to decide well,
which is it?
yeah,
Right,
which is
yeah,
it? They're
all
not
of them?
combative, but they are somewhat slightly aggressive.
Right.
Yeah. It's tough.
It is tough, and that's why there are so many sort of conflicting diagnoses. I think you could send one individual to multiple providers and at least get 2 or 3 opinions or diagnoses, and I think it can be very, very dangerous, especially when you're talking about the next step, which is pharmaceutical treatment.
Right.
If you're giving someone something that could be harmful to them and maybe doesn't even help with what they're experiencing. So I think it's something to be really, really cautious with. And at the same time, it can be a huge comfort to know that, okay, what I'm experiencing has a name and somebody's sort of written about it or studied it. And there can be some relief in that as well, I think. Yeah.
Right. What's Aurora's strength?
Aurora's strength, gosh, I love Aurora. I mean, I didn't ever think I could live comfortably in the United States. When I came back. Yeah, I thought, oh, this is too Disneyland. This is too, I couldn't do it. And
From Kuwait to Naperville.
Right, or
God.
exactly. I'm just there's sort of like an unawareness of a lot of things, maybe, but which again goes with privilege. But I think Aurora is so diverse. There's a breadth of cultures, there's a breadth of religions. I think Aurora is a place where social services really do matter. And count for something. I think particularly in East Aurora, I think we're very good at acknowledging our problems and areas where we need help and not sort of sweeping them under the rug. So I love it here. I mean, I wouldn't live anywhere else. I mean, I would, but if I had to stay in the United States, I'd like to be here. I'd like to be in, a community that's sort of constantly in flux and that's, largely an immigrant community and where I can hear different languages and be exposed to different cultures, all while living in America somehow in the Midwest. It's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the changes that Aurora has undergone since you've been here. Well, have you seen a lot of changes and everything?
I don't know that Gosh, it's hard. When you're in the middle of something, you sort of almost don't notice it. It's like when your kids grow up and you're like, wow, they got big. But you don't see it while it's happening, right? It's happening in real time. I feel like crime-wise, at least in my neighborhood, things have improved. I remember when I first moved here, the cars had to park on opposite sides of the street every night. You couldn't leave your car parked overnight in the same spot for more than one night because there was so much prostitution going on in unlocked cars. I've had prostitutes behind my garage. I mean, people come in my backyard. So it seems a lot like there's a lot less of that going on. And I feel like that's a good thing, and on the other hand, I worry about the prostitutes. So are they okay?
It's part of the job,
You're right. Need someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like things have gotten a little less messy in that regard.
What changes would you like to see in the future?
I would like to see more providers providing resources in communities that need them.
Get some vacuuming going.
Is it?
on.
Okay. It's in the hallway. I'm like, it's not in my office.
Maybe that's one of the things about not doing a live today. So for the listeners, we have a vacuum cleaner that's happening right outside the door. Hunter is putting a stop. Hunter is security too.
Hunter just knocked him out.
Thank you, Hunter. Yeah, I would like to see more providers providing services in the community. It's very difficult for me to have conversations with my colleagues where I'm constantly asking the same questions. Do you take Medicaid? No. Why not? And I'll hear sort of a laundry list of reasons why people don't. and they're all sort of surmountable obstacles. Like it's not very difficult to sign up to, or it can be sometimes, depending on the plan. But I would love to see more people taking Medicaid or offering pro bono, maybe 2 or 3 pro bono slots in their caseload. And I would love to see more people providing resources here in the neighborhood where people can access them. People can access them by foot, on foot or by public transportation. I think if you place resources out of reach of everyone, you're just contributing to a class system that's already built into our field. So I don't condone it.
A class system built into your field?
Absolutely.
No. How could that? Are you?
It's so bad.
Miss Dr. Goldman, are you serious?
I am serious. I used to teach personality theory at a local college, and I remember, sort of being in this classroom full of people of color, and presenting this giant textbook of personality theories. Every single one of those theories, with the exception of one, was a white man talking about his experience and generalizing it to the rest of the world. And I thought, why would anybody go to a therapist? So it's appalling. And it's not that other, people don't have other perspectives, but we're not sort of teaching them, right? We're not teaching them in college. I'm sure we're not teaching them in high school, and we're not sort of sharing them in a visible way. So I don't know what my point was, but
you know what?
Sometimes class system. Yes, there's a built-in class system. Absolutely. Therapy shouldn't be a luxury item. It shouldn't be like, going to a spa or something like that, right? It should be something that, like going to the dentist or like a mammogram or
basic care services.
This is an essential service, which is part of why I also haven't closed during COVID.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, this is life-saving.
No, I agree. I think it is. And that's why we're sitting here, because like I applaud what you do as a job. We talked a little bit before the show, but I haven't had too much counseling in my life. People know I'm 100% normal.
I can see that using DSM criteria.
Yeah. But I do know for a fact that there are so many people who have a benefit of services, okay, who either don't seek those services, or they go for the first interview and everything and then they stop because there is no relatability. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, if the therapist is telling you that her biggest obstacle in life was her dad going to, give her $12,000 for her down payment on a home.
Right.
And like, I ate ramen noodles for breakfast.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm not really seeing how this is like, why am I here?
Right. Like you're not going to be able to understand me, and you're going to think something's wrong with me because I'm poor.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Like I did something wrong.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I have used counseling services, probably not when I needed them.
We never do, right?
But I know I was talking to somebody, and again, it's nice having that outside person.
It's so nice
to give you an unbiased opinion and just say, like, here's what's going on with me. It could be something, really small, but again, you're getting that access to care so that it doesn't turn into anything bigger. So it's more preventative.
It's preventative,
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think that you need to sort of have a serious crisis to be seeing a therapist. I mean, I actually require my interns to be in counseling, not so much because this is a horribly stressful job and they're going to need it, but I don't want them to forget what it feels like to be in the other chair.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I told you about my jury duty experience.
Yes.
Once upon a time in my life, I was in court, right? But this time, I was in the jury. Like, I saw the disdain that the court system, we talk about the class system, I saw the disdain. I saw it perfectly, how this Caucasian male with no money was treated in this system, in the beast. I mean, as I mentioned before the show, he may as well have been black.
Yeah.
Because it was painfully obvious that he was on the bottom of the totem pole in the larger structure of things. Now, I can imagine how that must feel for a person who's indigent, okay, coming into and needing the care and the service. but coming into the system.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and our whole mental health system is set up to be, I feel like, to be sort of intimidating, and like one of the barriers to treatment is that most places ask you for a photo ID. When you register, they'll want your insurance card, your photo ID, et cetera, et cetera. And that is a rule here. We do not ask for ID. We don't ask for social, nothing like that. And sometimes it causes problems with billing. I have to be honest, if we have an inaccurate address or something. But I would rather sacrifice that handful of money to ensure that people feel safe coming in here and they're not worried about documentation status and they're not worried about identity, So for what it's worth, yes, I think there's a great deal of systemic barriers that are built in and that people absorb and just take for granted.
What does East Aurora Counseling have coming up?
Oh gosh. So typically this time of year we would be planning for Kwanzaa, which takes like months and months to plan, and we're probably not going to do it this year for obvious reasons. So coming up, we just onboarded a new biller and a new temp worker. And so people are getting their sea legs in that regard. One of our case managers is leaving this week. And heading for grad school at Northwestern, so we're very proud of her.
Shout out.
Big shout out. Yep, Tomcat, East High grad. She's been with me since high school. And we are looking forward to onboarding some new interns in January. So unfortunately, we don't have any big events coming up because of COVID.
Okay.
But we're definitely here. We're expanding. We're taking over the whole hallway. So, if there are providers who are thinking about reaching into the community and setting up shop, I have space for them. If not, I will fill it with interns.
Right.
So
that was the next question. How can people help and how can they get involved?
People could really get involved. Again, we are always so thankful for funding and donations. We really need them right now. We need food. We need clothing. The Talented 10th and Barbara Hernandez are actually giving us a bookcase. They're going to drop it off later.
All we do is win.
All we do is so win. Excited.
You were saying that, we need to get you Talented 10th to give you a neighbor box.
They're bringing us one this afternoon. Yeah, I'm so excited. So really, it's great to get referrals, and we're always open to referrals, but we actually need more help in different ways. We definitely, like I said, we need funding right now during COVID for the nonprofit as well as for the practice, but we need providers. If anybody out there is listening and they are, a therapist of any caliber, come rent a room for like $100 a month flat fee. I don't charge very much for rent. I'm not trying to make money off of subletting. But what I want is resources. I want people in East Aurora to have a choice and say, oh yeah, maybe I don't want to see Dr. Goldman. I don't want them to only see me because I'm the only one in 60505 taking Medicaid. I want them to have a choice of resources just like everyone in privileged communities.
That's great.
That's what I would like.
I want to cover 2 points quickly before the show wraps up. The first is I'd like you to detail. You've done a whole lot of traveling. I'm a Navy vet, so I've done some traveling too.
You get it.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally get it. Now your experience though is completely different from mine.
Okay.
We went overseas during port visits, so you're getting gas, you're catching drug boats. Why not stop in Ecuador?
Why not?
Yeah.
As one will.
Yeah. Now, your experience, though, completely different, and you have been raised at different ages in different countries.
Yes.
Talk about life in Kuwait as opposed to Naperville. Talk about life in Saudi Arabia as opposed to Schaumburg or something like that. Just briefly touch on what it is that the American misses and does not get about their experience as opposed to the global perspective.
I think, gosh, because we're a superpower in the world right now, I think that we are a standard, kind of in the same way that white men take it for granted that they are a standard and everything else is a deviation.
Right.
I think that Americans also feel that way about themselves. And so they think that the way that things are done in America is the way that things should be done. and everything else is kind of some kind of an aberration, and boy, they probably wish they were us. And lots of people love it here and want to come here, and I hear wonderful things from immigrants all the time. You might want to shut that. Sorry, we've got traffic now. Hi, that's one of my case managers. She just came in.
And
Like,
just
what is going
and
on
just like that,
here?
it's a live audience.
Just like that, yeah. That's traffic. So I guess the difference is that without exposure to other cultures, you might think that your culture is the only way to do things. I think the other piece for me is that I had very positive experiences in the Middle East growing up. And it hurts my heart. The Islamophobia in the United States hurts my heart because I've lived there. And I was treated wonderfully, and I had a wonderful childhood in those countries, particularly Kuwait was incredibly welcoming. And so I was being raised with Muslim people. My best friend growing up was from Pakistan. Like, I really want to dispel some of those stereotypes, particularly about Muslim men. I think they're particularly targeted, and sort of, there's a terrorist stereotype or something like that, which is just bizarre. I mean, that would be like saying that all white men are Timothy McVeigh, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all.
It's like what white people think about black people. Like, we're just gonna rob you any moment.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that perspective up.
Thank you.
That's another reason why we came to interview, because you know what it's all about. I grew up in a rough area, a lot of poor people. I've seen people sleep under bridges, like when I was walking to school. But it wasn't until I traveled and got to like Ecuador, and I bring it up as I have never seen poverty like that. I mean, the average American, no matter how rough you think the south side of Chicago or something, or Lower Wacker Drive, I mean, you have not seen poverty. People are washing their clothes in the same stream
Absolutely.
that they're drinking out of.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless the bottled water is donated, there is no water. And I don't think people understand that in America. They
Not
don't
at
get
all. We take so much for granted, right?
We do.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, I want to talk about before the show wraps up. The show wraps up on a positive note, so you will be delivering the message for the people today. But what would you like to see in Aurora in the next 5 or 10 years? And not just from a perspective of your profession, just overall.
What would I like to see in Aurora in the next 5 or 10 years overall? Wow, I wasn't prepared for that question.
See, we outside the box. That's how we roll.
Yeah, I would like to see more mixed income communities.
Okay.
I think that's better, rather than the segregation that we so often have, or the redlining that we deal with. I'd like that to sort of improve. What would I like to see in Aurora in the next 5 years? I would love to see more East Side Pride. Every single day, I have someone telling me bad things about the East Side, bad things about my own neighborhood.
Don't you hate it?
I hate it. It's very difficult. I had one person tell me that literally the worst thing he could think of was, well, there were two worst things. The number one worst thing was maybe he might have to live in an apartment. And number two, maybe he might have to live in an apartment on the East Side. And it was it was so difficult for me.
That's me, like, you know what?
So right.
Yeah.
Right. So part of why I named my practice East Aurora Counseling, it was like kind of a big middle finger, to be honest.
Right.
To the perception. I thought, I could name it some kind of inspirational thing. And I thought,
Hope
why don't I
floats.
just call it what it is?
Right.
Because the antidote to stigma and shame is pride, right? So why not just call it what it is?
The antidote to stigma.
Yeah. So I did.
That's great.
And it hasn't hurt my business
and you
at all.
owned up to it too, which is
despite warnings that it might. Yes.
Total East Side pride.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm writing that down. Good quote.
Thank you.
All right. So the show ends on a positive note. Okay. So what would you like to? What's your message for the people of Aurora today and going forward for the rest of the week?
I would just like people to know that we're here.
Okay.
And anybody who thinks that it can't be done, if anybody's thinking about, oh, I really want to sort of, give to communities that really need resources or mental health resources, and they think, oh, I can't do it, I can't make a living, or it's too dangerous or something like this. It's not true, and I just like to be sort of evidence that yes, you can do it, you can succeed, you can make a living. You can go to East High and go on to grad school in mental health and succeed. And so I just want to say it's possible. It's possible.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I also want to just take a brief moment to thank Brent Jimenez.
Our Jimmy John's guy.
Yeah.
He keeps us alive.
He does. He's a really good friend. I lived downtown for many years. And actually, strangely enough, I just moved to the east. I told you where I live.
Yes.
Welcome. I moved out of an apartment to a house, and my friends are telling me the same thing. Where you live? Oh, bruh.
I know.
Man, it's the hood over there. You better watch. I love it.
Yes.
It's kids and butterflies and flowers and the most beautiful thing you ever saw.
It's a very front porch neighborhood.
Front porch.
Mm-hmm.
Sipping wine all night, Cabernet. But I want to thank Brent for putting us together, putting us in contact. Yeah. Brent knows me very well. He knows all the hardships that I had in my life at an early age, and he knows that I have. It's not even a thing. It's leaps and bounds, and I'm so glad that he introduced us and made that connection, because I have been trying to just double down on what's good. If it's something good going on, if there's 10 people hearing about it, well, we're going to make 100 hear about it.
Yeah.
If it's, so I just want more goodness. So I'd like to thank Brent for putting us together.
Likewise.
And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. You're kicking butt and taking names, and we're proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're really proud of you. We appreciate everything that you're doing.
Too.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate everything that's going on over here.
There's such a good energy here.
Yeah.
Kind of coming in this morning.
It's the coffee.
It could be the coffee
yeah.
too. But again, you just see everything going on, and it's making a difference.
Duncan, holla. All right. Yeah. Oh,
sponsor
That's why I was like.
Yeah. Dunkin' Donuts, what's good? Can we get that sponsorship? But on behalf of Good Morning Aurora, we want to say thank you very much to East Aurora Counseling.
You're welcome.
Dr. Goldman, and also the Judah Robinson Foundation. I want to say and give a brief shout out to all of our friends and listeners out there. Don't forget, tomorrow we have Tracy Duran on the show, and then we also have Dakota on this Friday for Music Fridays. On behalf of Good Morning Aurora, what up?
I was going to say, and how can people get a hold of you on Facebook?
That's right.
Or
East Aurora Counseling EastAuroraCounseling.com. Sorry, that's the website. Or East Aurora Counseling #1@gmail.com.
All right.
Or
cool.
Just stop by. We like to give tours.
What's your address, and where you
We are at 143 South Lincoln Avenue, Suite I. We're on the corner of Lincoln and Clark. So the closest bus is Broadway, and Benton, I believe. So you can just walk up the hill, and there's free parking behind the building. Just stop in and say hi.
It's literally right here on the corner of Lincoln and Clark Street. It's around the corner from Crystal House. Shout out. Oh, you like that. All right. So on behalf of Good Morning Aurora, we want to say thank you to all of our listeners, all of our viewers, and all of our subscribers. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a lot more coming soon. Please like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well. And we are proud to be the second largest city's first daily news podcast. And I want to say thank you to Hunter. I want to say thank you to JV. I want to say thank you to my awesome co-host, Christine. And I want to say thank you again to Dr. Goldman. And this last message is for everybody in Aurora. No matter what the problem is, either contact East Aurora Counseling or the Judah Robinson Foundation, and they will help you out. You're not alone.
Help is out there.
Help is out there. Peace.